Welcome back. We were just at a place where you were excommunicated. No, but go ahead and tell us this discourse that came out of the Muslim community's leadership and the foundation.
Yes, the Al-Bayt Foundation in Jordan, which has sponsored, the co-sponsor of this Common Word document, and it's also a couple of years before that had engaged in a bringing together a couple of hundred Muslim scholars to try and create more unity between Sunnis and Shias, to reduce the role in which religion and religious differences have become politicized, both within the Muslim community and the case of the Common Word between the Muslim community and the Christian community in particular.
Interesting. But now, so that relationship, the foundation of it had already been laid as an intrafaith.
As an intrafaith and as and then later on as an interfaith.
So, but this is very important because to respond together around the issue, having made those relationships, it made it possible to move forward. But fast forwarding to the follow-up meeting in the States. You attended a meeting at Georgetown, which I think, Father Leo, you were there.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this?
Sure. Well, there were a couple, I think there were 3 conferences total from the beginning. There was one in Cambridge, there was one in Yale, Cambridge, and then the Vatican. And then the 4th one was at Georgetown under the auspices of President John DeGioia and Dr. John Esposito, one of the leading experts, so I'm sure you know.
We all love John Esposito.
Yeah, very dear friend and brother. And John invited me to speak at the program because he wanted to take it down from the heady heights of theology, which should be the foundation for practical action, does not always necessarily the case, and bring it down and say, how do we live out this thing? How do we allow for irreconcilable differences, but also common values? And so there were a number of case studies, like peace building in Mindanao in Philippines. Our organization has worked in Pakistan's Northwest Frontier Province. And sort of using those types of things and saying, what is it that we can, how can we build bridges to have a practical impact?
And what happened?
Well, I think there was a lot of good discussion. The word, so to speak, is still out because we're waiting on the summary of the Common Word and where the Executive Committee wants to take that. But the exchange was important because what's so critical about this is that Muslims and Christians are coming together on a regular basis. It's becoming routine.
All right, because usually, historically, our issue has been we wait until there's a crisis. There's 9/11, and then all of a sudden you say, well, you know, how do we respond together as a group? So this ongoing dialogue helps to create that kind of connectors. We were talking earlier about Suleiman Yang.
Yes.
And Dr. Suleiman Yang at Howard University, along with the Interfaith Conference of Washington, which your father was around at the founding of it, those relationships, if you can build them, it means when the time of crisis comes, that there's a familiarity, there's a trust that's built. And I really think, Father Leo, your statement earlier, I was interviewed right after Pope Ratzinger made these statements, and I said, you know what? This is like on-the-job training. That when you speak with the voice and the authority of the Pope, something different happens. And this initiative, bringing together Muslims at that level, brings a kind of weightiness to the idea that we have to work together. I'm going to ask you, Imam, where do we go from here? You said we're going to bring the discourse down. Where do we go from here?
Well, it's clear that relationships between Muslims and Christians are absolutely essential, because it's not just about theology alone. It's about building working relationships, not only at the grass tops level among opinion leaders, but also at the grassroots level. This is what Chris was talking about in terms of his work. I'm sure also Father Leo's work as well. But whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the hallways of political power, whether it's in the grocery store, it's these personal relationships which are very important. A major sociologist, an Indian sociologist, did studies about riots between Hindus and Muslims in India. And you noticed that it was more an urban phenomenon rather than a suburban phenomenon, happened in some cities and not in other cities. And what he noticed is that what prevented this from happening is when there were human relationships between Hindus and Muslims.
You know, we found the same thing here. CARE did a study, and Pew backs it up, that what makes a person feel differently about discriminating against another, if it's a Muslim in this case, is knowing, having a relationship with one person of the other faith.
Correct.
That common word or common relationship makes all the difference, and those relationships built one by one. I think we need to continue this conversation, and I really want to get into those mechanics that you talked about in these examples, but I think that's all we have time for.
Well, at least let's conclude on saying that we have to go from a common word to common action.
There we go. So when we have common action, and then that becomes the basis of a common word becoming materialized or manifested in reality. How do you do that, Father Leo?
It can take place on a lot of different levels, from grassroots neighbors looking at what are the problems in our neighborhood and how do we come together, because even though we have differences, we have many common values.
Like, what do I have in common with a Catholic?
Principles of social justice,
okay,
concern for the poor.
Okay.
Almsgiving is central to Islam and also to Christianity, that we are responsible for the welfare of our neighbor.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, the golden rule is the foundation of all of our religions. All religions, in fact, believe in the golden rule. What you do not want somebody to do to you, don't do to them. The Prophet said, none of you is a believer until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. So the phrasing may change from faith to faith, but it's the core of all of our faith traditions. And in the case of Christianity and Islam, we both believe in one God. We both revere Jesus Christ as, Muslims revere Jesus Christ as a prophet. We believe...
And the Messiah.
We believe we call him the Messiah. We believe in the Immaculate Conception, which some Christians don't even believe in. Muslims are required to believe that Jesus Christ did not have a father. So there are many, many things, even theologically, which you can point to as common bonds between Muslims and Christians. We both revere Mother Mary. Yeah. We regard her as the greatest of all women who ever lived, followed by Khadija, the wife of the Prophet. So there are many, many things you can point to, and the Quran itself says that you will find among the closest to you are the Christians.
In faith?
The closest to you, period.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the closest to you because they love God and they're compassionate. And,
this common word has to get out, because I don't think that the average person has a sense that these values are held in such highest that Muslims and I think I heard, now this is your chance, that Jesus is coming again.
I'm sorry?
Is Jesus coming again from the Muslim perspective?
Well, many Muslims believe that in the second coming of Jesus as well. So there are many points many points in common. In fact, as I tell many people, if you think of Muslims as Christians with an Arabic liturgy, we are within the spectrum of Christianity. So I mean, we're not totally right, not totally left. We're somewhere in the middle.
That's a new one for me, but I think that's going to have to be not only a common word, but the last word for us today. It's time for us to close this episode. We took it right up to the edge, and I want to thank my guests for being here today, and I want to thank you all for watching. And I invite you to tune in next time for part 2 of this discussion, where we'll share some final thoughts afterwards about this topic that's so important, I think, today in building bridges. Until then, I'll be living Islam in America. Thank you so much. In our episode, I previously made the mistake, and I want to extend my apologies to the Catholic community. I had referred to the Pope as Pope Ratzinger when I should have said Pope Benedict XVI. My apologies to you. It was in no way meant to be offensive. And I hope that this message will reach Pope Benedict, and I hope that he would hopefully maybe grant us an interview sometime in the future. Till then, again, I apologize and thank you so much for your patience.